And as you come on stage, let me just remind everybody that you've been investing in insecticides in Nigeria. So as you address this issue of local production, perhaps you can tell us about the work that you're doing in places like Nigeria. How does that, drive capacity in a very complex market like Nigeria, but start to, create value chains within the region?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. By way of introduction, my name is Patrick Sieyes. I work for a family-owned company called Vestergaard, a 20-year veteran, half of that time on the African continent. So it's not lost on me how important this conversation is to really drive towards malaria elimination. New data that was released during the Tropical Health Conference in Toronto from the Malaria Atlas project shows that insecticide-treated nets are the single most effective tool, the greatest averter of malaria cases that we have in the last 20 years. In fact, they reinforce the pivotal role of a bed net because they have collectively averted 72% of all malaria cases in the past 20 years. 1.13 billion malaria cases have been averted by the humble bed net. A mosquito net is a foundational tool, a tool upon which all other tools should be layered on, and so therefore it's absolutely critical that we ensure that these nets are manufactured locally. But plateauing ITN coverage has been one of the key drivers of this stalling progress that we've seen in the past years. This has been further compounded by insecticide resistance. And as a bed net manufacturer, we need to innovate faster than the mosquito mutates. And so we now have a new crop of tools, dual active ingredient nets, chlorphenapir-based nets that are increasingly offsetting the resistance-related losses. But local manufacturing is critical. It is key for Africa. The African continent bears 94% of the global malaria burden. Yet the vast majority of these nets have been imported, mainly from Asia. And if there is one thing that we should learn from the COVID pandemic is how fragile supply chains are. And to Sherwin's point, it is so critical that we ensure life-saving interventions are made on the continent. Transferring technology is key, but by itself does not guarantee long-term success. Rather, building and maintaining manufacturing capacity in Africa requires a private sector company like us to put skin in the game. And we do this in partnership. And so we're very lucky to have an extensive partnership with, for example, the US Development Finance Corporation, MedAccess, Gates Foundation, and of course, the government of Nigeria. And Vestergaard is investing in a first of its kind manufacturing joint venture in Nigeria. So we're basically setting up a local manufacturing facility together with a partner. And we think this is absolutely critical. We're not that type of company that is going to establish manufacturing on the continent and repatriate its profits. We want to build real value on the continent. We took this route of putting our own money in, our skin in the game, rather than just transferring technology to a third party, because we're committed to the long-term quality and sustainability of this project. But it comes with a level of jeopardy. By putting skin in the game ourselves, we're also exposing ourselves to a higher level of risk versus just doing tech transfer alone. This is not only our own money, it is also our own brand. And so this Nigerian joint venture will not only be producing permanent dual, our dual active ingredient net, but future iterations. And of course, this makes it much more challenging from a business perspective in what is a notoriously difficult to read market, clouded by shifting disease patterns, a very, very fickle mosquito, climate volatility, and ever-changing national policies. But the issue is the lack of visibility and predictability. So this lack of solid demand forecasts in any other market would be a major barrier to investment. And so while market shaping in principle promises a solution, this approach can all too easily trigger a downward spiral on pricing, eroding product quality, and diminishing the motivation to invest in critical areas such as regional manufacturing and scientific capability. We must, and we will, make this work for Nigeria and the global malaria community. But we're taking a slightly different path to ensure that we're putting in place the right structural foundations required for long-term progress. You see, private sector is primed. We have the innovation, we have the agility, we have the skill and scale needed to consign malaria to history. And by so doing, unlocking a $4 trillion business opportunity. And I think, and I hope you agree, that it is now time to unleash business as a force for good and a force for progress. Thank you.